Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Exploring Virtual Reality for Workplace Safety Training. As many of you know, Amerisure is one of the nation's leading providers of commercial insurance. We specialize in managing risk for businesses in construction, manufacturing, and healthcare. We are licensed to conduct business in all 50 states and have been in business for over 100 years. There are nearly 700 Amerisure employees, with our headquarters located in Farmington Hills, Michigan, and 12 strategically located core service centers around the country. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box or in your Zoom chat. You do have the option to submit your questions anonymously if you choose. I'll bring them up at the end of our presentation. And due to the number of attendees and to avoid background interference, all attendees are muted and will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. Please be aware that this webinar is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific solutions for any potentially unsafe conditions and should not be relied upon for legal advice. You are advised to consult with an attorney to address any particular circumstance, and Amerisure assumes no duty or obligation to any party in providing this information. Our presenters today are Eric Austin, Caitlin Masters, and Blake Beckman. Eric has been part of the Amerisure team since 2008 and is currently based in our Farmington Hills Core Service Center. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Central Florida, a master's of business administration, and is a certified safety professional. Blake has been part of the Amerisure team since 2021 and is currently based in our Dallas Core Service Center. He has a bachelor's degree in fire protection and safety technology from Oklahoma State University, a master's degree in occupational safety and health from Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and Blake is a certified safety professional. My name is Caitlin Masters, and I have been part of the Amerisure team since 2020. I am currently based in our St. Louis Core Service Center. I have a bachelor's degree in safety management from the University of Central Missouri, and I am a construction risk insurance specialist. We have a wealth of knowledge to share, so without further ado, let's learn more about virtual reality training. Today, we will learn about virtual reality and how it's used in training settings, how VR differs from traditional safety training, key benefits and success stories for VR safety training, and we'll test your knowledge by walking through a real-life fall protection scenario. But before we dive in, let's take a quick poll to see your familiarity with virtual reality. Take a look at the poll question and answer. How have you used virtual reality programs? Gaming, safety training, both, or VR makes me dizzy? So it looks like there's not too much familiarity with virtual reality safety training, but a lot in gaming. But that's good. That's why we're here. We're going to go through it and tell the perks to using it. So how is VR different? Virtual reality training serves as a great stepping stone between traditional classroom-style safety training and real-world scenarios. Users will be able to practice their safety skills in a safe environment before they practice them in the real world, such as a job site or manufacturing setting. The employee in the scenario shown will not be killed for a mistake on an electrical panel. We can all agree that it would be better for an employee to make a mistake in properly tying off their harness or locking out a machine in a VR setting than in a real-life scenario. VR safety training allows for instructors to physically teach as well as make corrections to safety skills in real time. It is not just the employee with the headset on that's learning. The training can be casted to a large screen or projector so that an entire classroom can participate in the safety training. Employees will be more engaged with this type of training as opposed to listening to a lecture. VR safety training is a great way to increase learner retention and employee engagement by giving learners real-life scenarios which require visual, physical, and verbal engagement. Employees will be more engaged with this type of training as opposed to just listening to a lecture. And they will naturally retain more of what they learned because they're seeing it instead of just hearing it. This is more likely to increase participation as well. It is important to note that VR safety training works best when used as a supplemental part of safety training programs. For example, during an OSHA 10 course, an instructor may spend 30 to 45 minutes going through fall protection training module to help employees further understand how to don a harness and properly tie off. VR is not meant to fully take the place of this training, but rather complement the classroom approach by bridging the gap between reading about a hazard and coming face to face with the real world hazard scenario. This image is most likely what comes to mind when we think about traditional safety training. There are one or two instructors, typically a safety director or an ops manager, a classroom filled with employees, and various safety topics will be discussed, and the employees will listen as the presenter speaks. This is the most common type of training, but one of the issues with this training is it's difficult to get employee engagement, which leads to low retention levels. As we will talk about it a little later in the presentation, lecture-style training has one of the lowest rates at 5%. We all have often heard upper management say, when speaking about safety training, try to keep it to under an hour or you'll start losing them. One of the biggest hurdles regarding this training is keeping the employees engaged and making sure they retain the material that is being taught. And that's where VR safety training can help. In 2020, a study by EHS Today said that traditional classroom-style safety training lacks the abilities to give learners the hands-on experience that they need. And it was found in 2018, U.S. businesses reported $986 on average per learner for safety training. So before I hand it over to Eric, let's see who is paying attention. Take a look at this poll question and provide an answer. Which training method has the highest learning retention rate? Computer-based, traditional classroom, interactive virtual reality? Well, good news. Looks like you all were paying attention. Interactive hands-on training has a higher learning retention rate. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Austin to talk about interactive learning and the key benefits of virtual reality training.
Thank you, Caitlin. Now let's talk about some of the key benefits to VR training. A recent study conducted by Stanford University found that when using VR training techniques, job performance improved by 70%, while learner retention rates were increased by 75% as opposed to when using traditional methods. The training also took about 40 to 60% less time due to the training method of doing opposed to only listening. The ability for employees to physically see what they're learning helps them to understand and retain the information at a much higher rate. The employees do the task opposed to simply sitting in a classroom and listen to the task being explained. Now, who's using VR training? Walmart is currently using VR training across 200 different training centers. The results were an 80% decrease in overall training time due to the convenience of VR technology. Verizon is also using VR training to teach their employees about how to deal with armed robbery situations. We also see a decrease and elimination of cost and risk of unnecessary travel. This enables more effective safety training content for high-risk industry sectors such as utilities, construction, and manufacturing. Enhanced team decision-making and collaboration factor as well. The trainer will be able to provide real-time feedback to the employees who are using the VR headset and also others who may be participating. Some additional benefits of VR training. VR training enables more effective safety training content for high-risk industry sectors. In the construction industry, the use of VR fall protection programs allows an employee to demonstrate knowledge opposed to simply citing an OSHA standard. In manufacturing, when using a lockout-tagout program, the employee will learn how to lock out a complex system without exposing themselves or others to electrical shock or other hazards. With utilities, when using a confined space entry program, A trainer will see how an employee will perform when entering a utility access point. For example, prior to exposing them to a lethal situation. The second bullet point discusses VR training and collaboration. Employees can collaborate with each other and offer suggestions while the program is underway. The third bullet is especially important. The trainer will know where the employee made mistakes and be able to correct them. The trainer will also have a greater comfort level in certifying that an employee is ready to perform the task because they've already performed it. Safety training, as we know, can be expensive, which is why it's important that the training time is effectively used and employees understand what they've learned. Studies have shown that the more hands-on the training approach is, the higher the learning retention rates will be. It's much easier to master a task when we practice it, opposed to simply listening to someone tell us how to do it. In a 2020 article by Frontcore, studies have shown that the learning retention rate is only about 5% for lectures, as opposed to 75% for virtual reality type training. VR safety training is only beat by hands-on training, which is another great method of safety training. Unfortunately, due to time or travel constraints or other issues, many employers will not use the hands-on approach for safety training. Hence, VR training can be the second most effective method for most employers. The University of Maryland conducted a study focused on determining if people learn more using a traditional laptop computer or a tablet or VR training. The results, as you might expect, were that 40% of the participants scored at least 10% higher on learning retention when VR training techniques are used other than those that use the desktop computer or the tablet. Now, who's currently using VR training? Actually, it's more common than you think. It's currently being used nationwide. Multiple utilities are using VR training, as is Ford Motor Company. We see VR training being used with first responders, and as we discussed earlier, Walmart and Verizon use this technology. Construction and manufacturing are now industries that are extensively using VR training, and we even see life safety classes on things like active shooters, interviewing, active listening, and even soft skills. At Amerisure, VR training has been demonstrated and used at electrical contractors, insurance agencies, roofing contractors, HVAC contractors, and even a large food service company has utilized the warehouse hazard recognition program for their employees. Now let's talk about some VR success stories that we have had at Amerisure. First, a group training opportunity arose for a very hazardous operation by an electrical contractor. The company wanted a method to train employees on the proper use of fall protection without endangering them to a fall exposure. Virtual reality training was suggested by a Farmington Hills, Michigan consultant, and the training itself was held during a safety rally with their employees. Groups of employees were cycled through the training where each person was able to participate. Employees were able to learn about fall protection, offer suggestions to each other, then discuss how the person using the technology performed. All were able to experience a hazardous situation in the virtual world, opposed to the real world. When some employees failed, there were no consequences to the failure. And unlike classroom training, participation in the exercise was universal. For another large contractor, the company leadership expressed interest in both fall protection and confined space entry training. Due to the exposures the employees faced, the policyholder wanted to be able to verify employee proficiency prior to exposing them to danger. And that's an important point. They were able to verify the employee proficiency prior to having them exposed to danger on the job itself. In the case of confined space entry program, the employer wanted to verify their employees' decision-making process prior to the dangers of working in a storm drain or other hazardous situations. So what programs are currently available? Although there's many vendors with entire libraries of programs, Amerisure is testing out a select number of programs to see what is most effective. The programs listed below are in the Amerisure library. Some are repeated as they have dual use. This means that they're useful for both construction or general industry. For construction, we currently have fall protection, ladder safety, and confined space entry. For general industry, we have warehouse hazard recognition. Now, this program includes both hazard recognition for general warehouses as well as chemical storage warehouses. Additionally, we have lockout tagout training, ladder safety, and confined space entry. Now, here we have an actual video clip from the warehouse hazard recognition program. We see a flammable liquid storage cabinet with chemical containers that are stored outside of the cabinet on the floor. The user will select the proper correction to this particular hazard. The employee then moves to an exit that is blocked by pallets. First, the employee will identify if this is unsafe. When they select yes, then they must provide an answer to correct the hazard. When the correct answer is selected, a green check mark appears, signaling that the issue has been addressed. The employee is then free to move on to other parts of the warehouse for more hazard recognition and correction. Now, this slide here is an interesting one because this slide demonstrates the subtlety and the depth of the training. As you can see in the pictures, users can practice verifying the capacity of a ladder. A ladder can be in perfect condition, but not be a professional ladder with a 300-pound rating. If the employee does not select the ladder rated as professional, they will not pass the scenario. Here we have a video clip of the ladder program. Notice how the employee can raise and rotate the ladder. In this way, they can properly inspect the ladder itself. This particular ladder looks good, but the ladder itself has been modified to include those hooks. Those are not authorized modifications. The employee moves on to the next ladder. Again, we're rotating and looking at the ladder itself. But then as we see here, the employee spots a split on the side rail of the ladder. With that, the employee would reject this particular ladder or else fail. When inspecting, there may be issues with the spreaders, the top cap, the steps, the feet, or as discussed earlier, the labeling on the ladder itself. So when is VR training most effective? First, when a training need is identified. A training need may be where there's a dangerous situation where a company may want to verify an employee's knowledge prior to exposing them to the actual task. The employee can demonstrate the knowledge in the virtual world. Also with large group training, many times you think of VR training as one-on-one, but the training itself can be cast onto a TV set or a projector. As such, at an OSHA 10 hour, for example, even one person wearing the headset and having the rest of the class follow along is exciting. Many will shout out suggestions, and there's even humor when the participant fails. Some of the tasks are exceptionally difficult to perform in real life. What we see in the photo and the video is a confined space training program where the employee is down a utility drain accessing a valve. In this case, the valve fails every single time. But if the employee completed all of the steps properly, they are then rescued and pass the scenario. Everything down to air sampling with gas meters for oxygen, explosive atmosphere, and other hazards, as well as communicating with the winch operator, are covered. Now, what are the limitations of VR training? First, this is new technology. One limitation of VR safety training is the time it takes to learn to use the controls and navigate the training modules. There is a learning curve at the beginning for first-time users. To help mitigate the learning curve, Amerisure risk management consultants can be on site to help demonstrate the controls and answer frequently asked questions. Wi-Fi is also needed for the VR headset and the computer if it's going to be cast to a TV or to a projector. The Wi-Fi will need to be strong enough to support the program and avoid lagging. Wi-Fi must be set up as a private network to make devices discoverable. This may require early coordination with the company's IT department so that they can allow appropriate access. Hotspots have worked in the past to get around this particular issue. As mentioned before, VR safety training cannot take the place of all safety training. It's important for employees to understand company and regulatory requirements for particular safety subjects and not just the hands-on side of it. So what's currently offered to agencies and policyholders that partner with Amerisure? First, for both policyholders and agencies, Amerisure offers on-site training plus a loaner program. With policyholders, Amerisure consultants will provide an introduction to the technology as well as on-site training, as well as demonstrations on different brands and types of headsets.
Whenever he
With the loaner program,
this,
Amerisure
go ahead.
Amerisure allows the policyholder to try before you buy. This allows the policyholder to understand and test the effectiveness of the curriculum and training methods. This also allows the policyholder to measure and compare different programs, headsets, and determine if the training is right for them. Prior to making a large investment, Amerisure will loan the equipment and provide the instructions for better decision-making. For the insurance agencies, Amerisure consultants demonstrate where this type of training can be effective. This allows the agency to promote the technology, plus offer a differentiation between their agency and Amerisure from that of other carriers and other agencies. The most common comments we hear are, "This is game-changing," and "No one else is doing this." With the loaner program, the insurance agent can use the technology and headset independent of Amerisure on existing or prospective clients. They can demonstrate service above and beyond that of what other agencies offer and show that only they offer this level of service.
Thanks, Eric. Now on to the fun part. Blake Beckman is going to perform a live fall protection demo, and we're going to need your input. Take it away, Blake.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin. 1 second here while I get my screen pulled up. Okay, perfect. All right, everyone. Hi, my name is Blake Beckman, and today I'm going to take you through the interactive portion of today's webinar. So what I've done is I've shared my screen with you. And so right now on your screen, you're seeing exactly what I'm going to be seeing inside of the headset. So in a second, I'm going to go ahead and put this headset on, and we're going to walk together through a fall protection safety training scenario. And as we're going through this training, I'm going to rely on our audience for help. So how we're going to do that is we're going to send out a poll question to everyone as I'm inspecting my harness, so that as I'm doing the visual inspection, everyone can cast their vote as to whether they think that the harness is safe to use or not. And then finally, we'll put our skills to the test. So let's go ahead and get started. One second here. Okay. So as you can see, we're standing in the training room. And the very first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to grab this harness. And we're going to do a good visual inspection of the harness, similar to how we would do it in the field. As you can see, I'm using my controllers in my hands to rotate this harness around so I can give it a good check. And so we're looking for any kind of cuts, tears, abrasions in the webbing and the D-rings, anything that would make us think that this needs to be tagged out of service. So Caitlin, if you want to go ahead and send out that poll question, I'll keep rotating this harness around so that you can get a good look.
Okay, the poll question has been launched.
Okay, perfect. So everyone go ahead and cast your vote on, let me know what you think. What are we thinking about this harness? Are we seeing anything, any defects? in this particular harness that makes us think that we should throw it out, or do we think that this one's good to go?
So looks like they're saying to go ahead and go with this one, but if they didn't, then maybe let them know how you would proceed.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So we're gonna just go ahead and go with the majority here. And I'm gonna throw this on. And so now I'm wearing the harness. And then my lanyards are right here. So I'm gonna grab a lanyard. And we're gonna do the same type of thing with the lanyard. We're gonna give a good visual inspection. Again, we're looking at the webbing. We're making sure there's no tears, any kind of deficiencies in the lanyard that would make us wanna throw this one away and use a different one. And from what I can see, this one looks great. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one on. So now I have my harness and lanyard on. And so let's go ahead and see how we did and put our skills to the test. So go up the elevator. And as you can see on your screen, we are standing at the top of a very tall scaffolding next to a skyscraper. And right now I have my volume down, so you're not able to hear it, but my coworker over there is yelling at me, telling me to hurry and bring them this hammer. And so there's some pressure built in, as we see sometimes in real life, to hurry up with our task instead of waiting and doing the safe thing. So I'm going to attach this hammer to my harness, which I've done there. And now I'm going to take the lanyard that we chose, and I'm going to go ahead and tie off to the lifeline. So my task is to bring this hammer over to my coworker, and I'm all tied off. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up this door, and I'm going to walk across this catwalk, and we'll see what happens. So the catwalk collapses, as you can see, but it looks like we were caught. And we were caught by our lanyard. So I can click see what we missed, and it says no mistakes. So that's perfect. So just as a note, if we would have done something wrong there, if we would have done something wrong, such as select a defective harness or lanyard, or even if I wouldn't have tied off properly, then you would have watched me fall almost all the way to the ground. And I know we kind of went through that scenario fairly quickly, but we did so just that you could get a glimpse into what one of these training scenarios looks like from the inside of the headset. There are many other training scenarios that can be selected within the fall protection module. For example, there's one training scenario where the user specifically focuses on harness and lanyard inspection. And then another thing to keep in mind, that in a classroom setting, if the user fails, the instructor can use that as an opportunity to discuss what went wrong with the rest of the class. Also, in most real-life cases, the scaffolding doesn't normally collapse like we just saw in the demonstration, so the employee won't know that they did anything wrong. The instructor can then point out that bad habits can develop over time, and then when there is a problem, the employee isn't properly protected from a fall. So now to wrap up our webinar, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Caitlin.
Thanks, Blake. Hope you all enjoyed participating in the VR training. We're going to go ahead and take some questions for now. Just a reminder, be sure to type your questions into the question box or your control panel. All right, looks like we have some questions come in. So let's start with this one. Are there any training modules like driver safety training available?
I can take that one. There's an entire library of different programs that are available. Some of them do focus on driver safety. There's forklift programs out there. Currently, right now, the programs that we demonstrated and that discussed earlier are the ones that Amerisure is testing out. So we do not have driving programs available at the moment, but those programs are in the libraries and are available for use.
Okay, great. Another question that came in is, looks super cool. How much would it cost to develop and keep using a single module? I've heard it's really expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. So I'll start by saying that the use of our VR technology is a free resource for Amerisure policyholders and partner agencies. So if you currently are an Amerisure policyholder and you're either wanting to set up a demo with a VR headset, or you would like to use it for your own safety training needs, then you can use our headset and training platform free of charge. The best thing to do in that scenario would be to reach out to your local risk management consultant, and then we can get a headset sent to you, as well as have someone on site to show you how to use it. The only way that money comes into play is if your company is wanting to purchase your own VR headset and training platform. So in that case, it basically works on a credit system, and that you would purchase a set number of credits, and you will use around 3 credits per login to each training module. So for example, the fall protection training that everyone just watched me demonstrate, that would use around 3 credits for that one.
Okay, and then in terms of that, a question came in about customization.
Okay, as far as customization goes, that is available if you want to have your own program developed, but it's fairly costly. So I mean, from what we've seen, if you're a large corporation, yes, you can have your own program developed. I mean, obviously Walmart has. However, at the same time, for most companies, a customized program may be cost prohibitive. And again, that's something that you can discuss with your local Amerisure consultant, and he can discuss that and get you prices from the vendors.
And then we did have a question come in about training for landscaper and gardeners. And I think the answer is currently not right now, but we're still always building our library as we continue. Looks like our questions have kind of stopped coming in.
One other question that came in earlier was where and how do we access the VR training that we currently have, and can you provide us with headsets? And yeah, that's part of the loaner program. So as Blake mentioned, contact your local Amerisure risk management consultant, and they will come on out first, demonstrate it, let you play with it. And if you like what you see, then we will just leave you with the headset for a set period of time where you can try it out and see if it's right for you. One of the headsets I have right now is currently at a policyholder, and they're using it, and they're using it with warehouse safety and then also fall protection. So this is something that is available free of charge for Amerisure policyholders and agencies.
Okay, great. So we've covered everything. If you think of another question, feel free to reach out to your risk management consultant. We appreciate you being here. We will be sending all the webinar attendees the presentation from today via email. And also all of our webinar recordings are available in the SureConnect portal under risk management resources. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you in 2023 for our next webinar series. And again, for additional information, you can contact your Amerisure Risk Management Department on WebRM or by scanning this QR code on the slide.